All right, so now we are going to start checking the task-based learning approach. Task-based learning approach, as I mentioned, it takes the principles from communicative language teaching. That's why when we check unit number 2, we mentioned that communicative language teaching give rise to other approaches. One of those approaches was natural approach, and this second approach was task-based learning or task-based approach. The acronym TBLT. TBLT was popularized by Prabhu, who noticed that his students could learn language just as easily with non-linguistic problems. But before I continue, I would like to mention who was Prabhu, and we will see just a short video of who was Prabhu. Prabhu task-based learning, task-based language teaching. All right, we will see in a moment. Here we will see who was N. Prabhu. N. Prabhu began his teaching career in Madras, India. He worked for many years as an English language specialist for the British Council in southern India, and at that time he conducted a 5-year project of teaching English in state primary schools, employing task-based activity. He later taught applied linguistics at the Department of English and Literature in the National University of Singapore. Prabhu retired from this university in 1994. He now lives in India and gives talks at various conferences. So, Prabhu, as professor of English, was the creator of this approach of task-based language learning approach. And then, I don't know, before I continue, if you have an idea of what is an approach. Do you have any idea of what is an approach? Sorry, not an approach, a task. Sorry. Do you have any idea of what is a task? Well, let's discover what is a task. First of all, TBLT is an approach that adopts meaning-based communicative tasks. And meaning-based communicative tasks are central unit for defining language learning needs, determining curriculum goals, designing activity in the classroom, and assessing language competencies. In other words, the task will be an activity whose scope is beyond a mere classroom activity. Let's see. Do you think that a task is just answering a worksheet? Do you think that a task is just participating in a forum discussion? Do you think that a task is just like only giving an oral presentation? What do you think? I listen to you. Well, in order to have like a better understanding of this approach, I will just reproduce a short excerpt of a video that talks about task-based language teaching. Let's see.
Pages. Task-based language teaching. Task-based language teaching, or TBLT, is an innovative approach to language instruction that focuses on using authentic target language to complete meaningful tasks. This method, also known as task-based instruction, is considered a branch of communicative language teaching. At its core, TBLT emphasizes the importance of tasks in language learning. Unlike traditional methods, TBLT assesses learning primarily based on task outcomes rather than solely on accurate language use.
Just check this excerpt. TBLT assesses learning primarily based on task outcomes rather than solely on accurate language use. So I go again with my question. Do you think that only answering a handout is a task? Do you consider that only giving an oral presentation is just a task? What do you think? Tell me. Any one of you, tell me, do you think that these examples are only a task? Exactly, Lupita. No, definitely just answering a handout or just giving an oral presentation is not a communicative task. And let's continue watching why is not a task.
This approach is believed to effectively improve target language fluency and boost student confidence. The theoretical foundations of TBLT are rooted in specific views of language and learning. TBLT considers language primarily as a means of making meaning, with a focus on the outcome of tasks. It incorporates multiple models of language, including structural, functional, and interactional.
So as you could see here, TBLT considers language primarily as a means of making meaning. So, do you consider that a task is asking for information in a travel agency? The outcome, in fact, of going to a tourist, I don't know, probably a tourist office and ask for touristic information, the outcome will be like a comparative chart or a diagram, and the product will be the result of the task going to the touristic office, asking for information, also asking for clarification, and then you retrieve that information. As you could see, there were a series of activities, if we can say, a series of activities that in fact they will be considered the task as a whole. So, this is the definition of a task. The activity where the target language is used by the learners for a communicative purpose in order to achieve an outcome. In other words, a task is an activity, a homework, an assignment, but with the communicative purpose of using language in the real world. Like other language activity, a task can engage productive or receptive skills, oral or written skills, and at the same time, it includes different cognitive processes. So, the only uh, the only administration of a handout is not a task. Nevertheless, the handout can be part of a communicative task unless students require a reinforcement of the grammar content or a reinforcement of the vocabulary content. In that way, only in that way, that handout can be considered as an instrument, as a constituent of a communicative task. So, I have mentioned a lot the word task, but what are their elements? First of all, it has a purpose, a goal. They provide a link between the curriculum and the activities or tasks. That activity or series of activities will be built around an input. In this case, data, the input, should be provided by the teacher, a textbook, or any other source. The source can be taken from authentic material, it can be an adaptation of an existing textbook activity. And then the most significant part is the procedure, how learners will do with the input they receive and the output they will produce. So, in order you have a better understanding of this theoretical concept, I will again reproduce the part of the video we were checking.
The outcome of tasks. It incorporates multiple models of language, including structural, functional, and interactional. TBLT also emphasizes the importance of lexical units, including not just individual words, but phrases, sentence frames, and collocations.
So, as you could see, a communicative task also includes the use of lexical units. So, the use of lexical units will allow learners to communicate, to negotiate meaning, to ask for information, to retrieve specific information, to get an agreement. All those functions, all those communicative functions, in fact, will give rise to the communicative task. Let's continue.
In terms of learning theory, TBLT posits that tasks provide both input and output processing necessary for language acquisition.
Input and output necessary for language acquisition. Let me give you just an example so you can better comprehend the idea of a task. I'm going to give you this in Spanish. Imagínense que uno de los contenidos del syllabus, del programa que ustedes están llevando, es sobre planes a futuro. Así, literal, planes a futuro. Para que se convierta en una serie de actividades comunicativas, es decir, en tasks, van ustedes a pensar en un uso real de planes a futuro, el cual se puede ver a través de, si yo quiero planear un viaje, lo primero que tengo que hacer es llegar a un acuerdo con mis amigos sobre a dónde viajaremos, con qué presupuesto contamos y qué opciones tenemos y por qué nos decidimos por una. ¿Se dan cuenta las tres acciones que dije? Decidir con base en presupuesto, con base en gusto, o sea, justificar, y a su vez también en el tiempo que tenemos. El resultado de todo ese proceso de negociación va a ser una opción, un destino, y explicarlo. ¿Por qué? Ahí yo ya tuve una tarea comunicativa. Después de ahí viene la siguiente etapa, en donde los estudiantes van a tener que pedir información en una agencia de viajes sobre cómo poder llegar al lugar que decidieron, qué atractivos turísticos tiene ese lugar que decidieron, y de ahí el poder decidirse por un paquete de viaje. El producto final de ese preguntar información específica, aclarar dudas y llegar a una decisión, el producto comunicativo de esa decisión va a ser otro communicative task. Pero para que puedan llegar a ese producto que va a ser explicar la decisión de cuál paquete turístico seleccionar, va a implicar que también los estudiantes preparen su discurso, es decir, cómo van a preguntar, cómo van a estar haciendo uso de expresiones tales como what if, or I don't understand, can you repeat, or I beg your pardon. Es decir, expresiones léxicas que van a ser necesarias que las puedan emplear en su conversación. Y ahí viene otro elemento del task. Puedo yo complementarlo con actividades específicas, por ejemplo, para que desarrollen confianza y utilicen esas expresiones que les acabo de mencionar. Entonces fue una preparación previa a empezar a utilizar esas expresiones. Ese sería un pre-task. Después de ahí vendría el task, justamente cuando ya empiezan a preguntar por la información, empiezan a hacer su organización a través, por ejemplo, de alguna tabla donde van a registrar la información. Ese es el task, el during task. Y posterior a ello, ya finalizan, hacen su decisión y la presentan. Esa presentación junto con la toma de nota del profesor de qué aspectos falló en la presentación oral, cómo lo pueden mejorar, posiblemente si hay algún aspecto gramatical que necesitan reforzar, ese sería el post-task, la etapa del post-task. Por eso es que menciona en este ejemplo, TBLT posits that task provide both input and output processing necessary for language acquisition. Por medio de esas etapas que le mencioné, preparación, durante el task y posterior al task, estamos logrando que nuestros estudiantes vayan adquiriendo desde una perspectiva comunicativa, pero a su vez también secuencial, el contenido lingüístico que nuestro curso nos señale. And then there are some types of tasks. Listening, only completed list of a draft mind map, for instance. Ordering and sorting, there is a set of information order and you need to arrange according to specific criteria. Comparing, it could be items appropriately matched or assembled or identifying similarities and differences. Problem solving, finding solutions to a problem. Sharing personal experience, for instance, giving a narration or describing, and then a creative task. The end product can be appreciated by a wider audience. So these are the types of tasks that may emerge. So far, please tell me any doubt, any question that you may have about the theoretical information I am providing. Tell me, please, any comment, any doubt that you have. I listen to you. Otherwise, I cannot continue with explanation.
Yo tengo una pregunta.
Yes, go ahead, Lupita, dígame.
Bueno, aquí puso tipos de task, pero como que yo entendí que se enfocaba más en la producción oral, pero no sé.
Exactamente, y qué bueno que se dio cuenta de ello. No podemos decir que el task-based solamente se enfatiza en la producción oral, pero sí la privilegia. ¿Qué nos quiere dar a entender? Bueno, pues que en realidad el enfoque basado en tareas va a dar un énfasis mayor a la producción oral, claro, sin descuidar la producción escrita, pero la mayor prominencia que se le da a los tipos de tasks van a ser orales. Por eso, justamente ahorita como usted lo identificó, sí, la mayoría de ellos son de producción oral. ¿Alguien más? Any other comment? Any other question?
Por mi parte, no, profe.
All right. Thank you so much. So now I will continue with this explanation. There are some principles that should be met for employing the task-based language teaching approach. First, activities should involve real communication. Real communication should be the main element. Probably when you are in the classroom, you will find with some topics of your syllabus quite difficult to create that aspect of real communication. Nevertheless, you as a creative teacher should find the solution of how to transform the content into a communicative, on a real communicative task. Second, activities in which language is used for carrying out meaningful tasks promote real learning. That implies that language that should be taught should be more oriented for a daily life basis. It doesn't imply that you will teach collocations or idioms. It can be also part of the syllabus, but not for beginners, probably for upper intermediate and advanced. Three, language that is meaningful to the learner supports the learning process. How do you know language that is meaningful for the learner? Well, according to the language level and the reasons why they are studying language. Obviously, the emphasis should be placed on communication and meaning. They are not going to be fluent fools. In fact, they are producing language for transmitting meaning. Number six, language learned by interacting communicatively and purposefully. That's why the communicative tasks should be based or similar to a daily life transaction. Seven, activities and tasks can be achieved in real life and have a pedagogical purpose. The pedagogical purpose is, in fact, for students to be tolerant to others' ideas, to take turns when they are speaking, to get an agreement, how to negotiate their ideas. That is the pedagogical purpose, in fact. Activities and tasks of this syllabus are sequenced according to difficulty. You are going to start with the most easiest tasks and you will finish with the hardest ones. Hardest tasks that may include the production of more complex lexical items. For instance, the use of phrasal verbs, fixed phrases, and some collocations. So, what is the role of the teacher? In this case, teacher has three main roles. The first one is a facilitator of the communicative process. The second one will be a participant. In this case, they will be part of this communicative process. And the third one, it will act as an observer. In this case, the teacher will take note of students' mistakes. So in the post-task stage, the teacher can give feedback. And at the same time, it also acts as a learner since the feedback or the results teachers obtain will also enhance them for making improvements in her teaching practice. So let's continue to review the part of the video.
It argues that task activity and achievement are inherently motivational, appealing to various learning styles and often involving physical activity, collaboration, and partnership. But what exactly constitutes a task in TBLT? According to Prabhu, a task is an activity that requires learners to achieve an outcome from given information through a process of thought, allowing teachers to control and regulate that process. Examples of tasks include preparing a meal, ordering food in a restaurant, making a doctor's appointment by phone, solving a problem, or designing a brochure.
So here you could see these are real life communicative tasks. So let's continue, which are some of techniques, information gap tasks. In this case, information exchange among students to complete a task. In the TBLT lesson, students have to exchange the information they have to complement other teams' information that they don't have. Opinion gap task. Students need to express their feelings and preferences to complete a task. Reasoning gap task. Students draw inclusion from the information given. Sorry, conclusions from the information given. They will deduce what's, for instance, the ending or the last part of a short story, for instance. And for sure, there are some advantages and disadvantages of using the TBLT. Some advantages, it places students in real world situations. And as Lupita mentioned, oral communication is essential for doing tasks. Learners are exposed to as much foreign language as possible, and obviously you need to give students a different way of understanding language, as you could see also in the video. By doing different kind of activities, students can have that sense of achievement. For sure, the disadvantages is that there is no acquisition of new grammar or vocabulary features. Students will master what they are included, the lexical items included in the development of the communicative tasks. And obviously, not all students are or will be motivated to develop the communicative tasks. In fact, this is because some students need more guidance, and because within the TBLT approach, it is emphasized the use of the target language, students typically translate and use a lot of their L1 rather than the target language. So just let's finish to see some of the ideas presented in the video.
Or designing a brochure. Tasks in TBLT must meet 4 key criteria as defined by Rod Ellis. First, meaning must be central, requiring learners to produce and understand communicative messages. Second, tasks should involve gaps, whether information gaps, opinion gaps, or reasoning gaps. Third, learners must use their own linguistic and non-linguistic resources to complete the task.
By non-linguistic resources is the use of body language, gestures, and other physical movements that transmit meaning.
Finally, tasks must have a non-linguistic outcome, such as drawing a route on a map or agreeing on a plan to solve a problem.
Vean en el ejemplo que les puse, llegar a un acuerdo para decidir a qué destino turístico van a ir. Si se dan cuenta, no requiere en sí, tal vez así como un producto lingüístico. No sé, un producto lingüístico como podría ser, escribe una carta en la que te presentes y des información personal. Ese es un producto lingüístico. Los communicative tasks no necesariamente van a tener como producto final un producto lingüístico. Okay? And then we will continue watching a little bit more about this video.
A typical TBLT lesson follows a 3-stage procedure. The pre-task stage introduces the topic through activities like brainstorming, games,
Or vocabulary exercises. Ese es el pre-task, es lo que yo les había mencionado. en donde vamos a equipar al estudiante con ciertas, llamémoslo así, contenidos lingüísticos o incluso activación de su background schemata, sus conocimientos previos sobre el tema, no sobre aspectos lingüísticos, sino sobre la temática de la que vamos a tratar el task.
or vocabulary exercises. In the task activity cycle, learners perform the task using their own resources, while the teacher monitors and supports.
En el ejemplo que les puse ya es cuando ellos van, se organizan, piden información a la agencia de viaje, deciden cuál es el mejor paquete de viaje y justifican sus razones. Ese sería el task. Y también dentro de esa organización del task, también los estudiantes puede ser que en algún momento tengan que reorganizar sus roles que desempeñan y lo pueden hacer ahí mismo dentro de esa etapa del task.
The post-task stage allows learners to compare their output with that of native or fluent speakers and provides an opportunity for focused language work.
En la etapa final del task, en el post-task, lo que se privilegia es que el estudiante reflexione qué también lo hizo, qué necesita mejorar en términos no tan solo lingüísticos, sino también del producto obtenido y de cómo lo están presentando. Por eso es que también uno de los roles del profe es también estar siendo observador de qué es lo que hacen los estudiantes y cómo lo hacen.
TBLT offers several advantages. It promotes implicit learning, allowing learners to develop language knowledge naturally through task completion. It also facilitates incidental learning, mirroring how much of our everyday learning occurs. Furthermore, TBLT enables meaningful communication during task accomplishment. However, TBLT is not without its challenges. Some critics argue that it focuses too heavily on fluency at the expense of accuracy.
Y vaya que si no, esa es una de las principales críticas, que se enfoca más en que el estudiante sea hábil en comunicar mensajes. Sí, ¿y qué hay de la propiedad gramatical? Esa es una de las críticas que principalmente le hacen.
It demands high levels of creativity and initiative from teachers and often requires resources beyond standard textbooks.
Y a veces en algunos institutos o en algunas situaciones piden completar el libro de texto, usar este enfoque puede incluso hasta hacer a un lado el uso del libro de texto y bueno, ahí sí surgen algunas dificultades, ¿no? Para justificar el por qué no se utilizó el libro de texto.
Additionally, evaluating task-based instruction can be difficult due to its subjective nature.
Claro, porque a pesar de que se utilicen algunos instrumentos para evaluar, para valorar el desempeño, como rúbricas o cosas por el estilo, también pues lleva en sí algunos aspectos subjetivos de, creo que lo hizo bien el alumno, sí, pero en realidad no hay así como, digamos, como un termómetro que registra niveles de temperatura, un termómetro que registre niveles de fluidez, por ejemplo, o de propiedad en la producción oral.
Task-based language teaching represents a significant shift in language instruction.
Sin embargo, sí se puede uno, dejo de compartir, sí se puede uno considerar que este enfoque, pues sí, sí representa un cambio paradigmático en la enseñanza de una lengua extranjera. So, final comments, any aspect that have caught your attention. Ahora sí me gustaría escuchar a los que no han participado, no sé, por ejemplo, Pedro, Aldair, Alonso, que ahorita no los he escuchado.
Yo pienso que este método es como de realizar muchas prácticas para lograr adquirir el lenguaje naturalmente. Eh, por eso es primordial hacer diferentes tipos de actividades para todas las habilidades, para lograr desarrollar todas las habilidades.
Ciertamente no es solamente el aplicar una hoja de actividades, en realidad sí requiere toda una serie de procedimientos, como lo estuvimos viendo. Muy bien, Pedro, muchas gracias. ¿Alguien más? Okay. So, thank you so much for this participation in task-based language teaching approach.